talk to about that.
It's always interesting when this group gets together and some good discussion. And I think
I see it.
Danny may have a topic today. I've already had some people say, well, I'm not sure I agree with this, or that's exactly right. And so maybe that's going to lead to some good discussion also. I want to, right up front, apologize that I'm going to have to slide out of here a little before our meeting ends. So if I get up and walk out, I'm not insulting anybody or anything like that. I do have to leave because of an appointment my wife has today. But anyway, I think you'll be excited to hear that a lot of the things that we've been talking about in here for, I guess, almost 2 years now has taken some real roots, and you should be proud of the things that you put out. And I guess the night that we met uptown Hickory and said, what's the plan? Sort of started from there, didn't it? And there is a group of leaders now that is working on a plan for this area, and we had some good representation there. Dr. Powell's on it, and I'm on that, and Danny sits on it, and Nathan, we have someone from EDC on it. We have Scott there, and you were there too, weren't you? You weren't at that one?
My brilliant ideas are not in that room.
Oh, okay. Well, you can just plan them with Scott, and I'm sure he'll take all of them.
Exactly.
Yeah. All the
plant
time
the seeds
there. It's called Catawba County Economic Competitiveness Planning, and I'll pass this around. We can pass this around. This was a survey that actually started the discussions, but the good thing about this process that's being used is that we're looking at the things that we presented, and then we're looking at things that would be high impact to the region, those ideas. But we're also looking at them in terms of not just high impact, because there's some things that can be high impact to the region, but we have absolutely no control over them. And if we don't have any control over them, you know, we're spinning our wheels if we spend a lot of time on them. What we're looking at and trying to find are those things that have high impact to the community that we have a lot of control over. And those are the areas that we can really focus on and make a difference. So as this committee meets and so forth, more and more information will be coming out from it and coming back to you. But I do think that this group needs to celebrate, because we have been the driving force and the push to get this plan out there. So I appreciate your work there.
We've had our first meeting and filled the survey out before, and there's about 30 of us before the meeting, and he went over the results and we began that discussion. There's 3 more meetings between now and November. We're taking June, July, and August off, but Ted will be here to interview and work with stakeholder groups, potentially this group, young professionals, HR managers, other people like this, to also gather information. So that's it's not a summer downtime, but he will be here meeting with other specific groups that we set up for him. And this was an example of the survey results from our group.
Okay. Any questions about that? Well, great. I think another thing that came out in our online efforts was that you folks would like to have a night meeting again. So I guess that's what we need to look at for June. Is that your idea, and would like to do that?
Yeah, I mean, whenever when everybody can coordinate something such as that. I think that people enjoy those night meetings. A lot of times, different people are on different schedules and stuff, and as long as we can schedule one ahead of time. I thought that the one that we had down in Conover was very well attended, and we had a lot of ideas came out of that session.
I think very well attended, and some good ideas, some good discussion. It's amazing what sometimes some liquid refreshment will create. So I think that was a good thing. Would anybody like to maybe take the lead in working with Danny to find us a location that you feel would be appropriate?
Or just
I trust y'all. You
Monday
did a
night,
good job
make
on
the
ours.
arrangements.
I trust y'all. Y'all did very well on that one that we had down there in Conover. I mean,
Okay.
wherever you choose. I mean, and one we had up here in Hickory. I mean,
Okay. We'll find your place, figure it out, give you plenty of notice.
I think we could meet out in the woods and we could come up with some
Okay. Danny, is there anything that you wanted to point out?
Couple of quick things. Edison project is now underway. It started the first week of March. The deadline for applications is May 31st. Here is the flyer. We have made a couple of major changes. It is still open for anyone that has a business idea, creative new business idea. But the other change is you don't have to be located in Catawba County. You can be located with any place within the metro area, which is good. Also, we said last year you had to be in, if you were already in business, you had to be in business less than a year. We're saying we don't care how long you've been in business. If you've just only able to reach cumulative revenues of $350,000, then you need some help. So those people are also invited if they have a unique, creative idea they're trying to get to the marketplace. Prize money is still the same. The phases and the deadlines you can see in the sheet. We'll finish this on September 17th, again with the community-wide audience that a lot of you attended. The application form, which is the executive summary that you have to write, 1,000 words or less, is on the website. So anyone that you know that would fall into this category that would like to participate, it's $100 for an application. We've also made a change that higher education students can participate at $50. So that's another change. So help us get this word out and send this to your potential, or your friends or family or anyone that you think might qualify. We got our sponsors back, and we're ready to go. So thank you. We have started a new entrepreneur exchange network that met for the first time last month. We had 30-something people there, and we about filled up the boardroom at CBCC, but they have offered to host us and help with any charges and pay for this. But the chamber is putting kind of an all alert out to any entrepreneur, any chamber member who would like to come on a monthly basis, exchange ideas and roundtable discussions, and with a short program. We'll have some bankers there at the one next Tuesday, and this is another sheet that I gave you. If you would like to come, then we had some wonderful people there that had a business idea that they were trying to get to the marketplace, and we helped vet those ideas for that. So please come if you can and would like to. There's no RSVP, no charge. We'd love to have you next Tuesday, the 24th, from 8 to 9:30 at CBCC in their boardroom right across from the auditorium. I sent you the attachment on America's Aging Workforce, and I've got 10 copies here for those that might want to print a copy. If you want one to take back, I don't have one for everybody, but if you would like one and would like to follow along with me, I want to take this and try to capsule this in several different directions. And I want to thank Liz from Regional Medical Center. She's the Director of HR. Sheila Dotson is here from COG. She is their Workforce Development Coordinator. It's kind of our HR resource people. If you're not in the HR business, and my wife's corporate HR for a manufacturing company, and I hear it for the last 18 years. So I understand and feel your pain, and understand that you're probably thinking we have major issues right now. Well enough looking at where we're going to be in 2020. But if you've not looked at this report, I encourage you to do so. Sarah will be here on September the 12th herself to do a program on this topic for all companies. But let me preface before I get into the workforce, the aging workforce issue, because I started in another direction before I saw this, and before this set off alarm bells with me in trying to make sure that American business understands, and particularly our local economy understands, that the demographics and the changing workforce issues are going to be so significant. But before that, Sarah wrote a book. It's called The End of Memberships as We Know. Now, when you're president of a chamber, you pay attention to books like this, and this book was written about predominantly associations around the country, but it also gives examples of chambers, and we fit right into the same category as association. And I have gotten so caught up with this issue, but I have kept within our industry and in the classes I teach and in my roles that I have with American Chamber Execs and U.S. Chamber. A lot of classes, a lot of dialogue on innovation and creativity, or we will die as an industry. And now I finally got somebody that has taken this information and related it back to my industry, the association industry, because the X and the Y's and the soon-to-be Z's, which are 9 years old to 21 years old, they don't join chambers, or they don't join associations, and they're in a whole different mindset of value and relevance about what they're going to participate in. So I'm not going to talk any more about this. This is an internal thing that myself and my staff are addressing, my board will address. And as Sarah says, we have basically about a 10-year life expectancy if we don't change and start embracing our young people and giving them positions of power and including them in the way they want to be included.
By we, you mean the chamber?
The chamber. But I'm taking that just as a chamber. But I think Lenore Ryan and business, everybody sitting in this room is going to be affected by the same thing that I'm having to deal with here.
Society in general.
And I think that in what Sarah has said, that we've got about a 10-year window. And in the most dramatic point that she makes is that we've known this has been coming. And she's indicated that January of 2011 was the time that folks that have been studying this and warning business and America industries about this. We are now in the largest demographic human capital change in America's history. And we have a boomer population of mine that is retiring and turning 65 every 8 seconds. So if you look at the figures in her data between where we are right now, the X and the Y's, there's not enough of them to replace the boomers that are leaving. The boomers were the leaders of our chambers and the ones that volunteered because they felt they had the community spirit to volunteer and wanted to, and they gave back to the community, and they have kept chambers and associations and American business operating for over 50 years. But in the next, between 2015 and 2020, this whole shift will take place that business is not preparing the way they should for this influx of XY and potentially the Z generation. And I hope that you were able to look at her study.
So Danny, what would you flag as the key things here? Because I mean, what you're talking about is the changing demographics are affecting every aspect of society. I mean, I deal with in Protestant churches where membership will drop by 50% in the next 20 years across all denominations, and that's a fact. It's not debatable. You deal with it. Our issues are very, very different, but higher education is going to flip in 25 years. It'll be a completely different model.
Yeah.
And so you have to prepare for it. But what is, and what can a chamber do to make itself relevant to the next generation? That's the big question.
That's what this was about.
Okay?
And I'm here to talk about, I'm not here to talk about necessarily just the chamber. I'm here to get a discussion and guidance on the big picture. What the chamber does could, internally, the way we appoint board of directors, the way we involve our young people on our committees, things like this, I would rather let us try to begin that dialogue with our own directors internally as to how we're going to change things, and they got to understand why we've got to change. I'm trying to get the broader picture of America, of our business community, and this is Rotary clubs and Kiwanis and everybody else, and as Wayne said, higher education too. I'm trying to take a conversation this morning with the big picture of what business is going to have to do now to begin changing. As she said, they have known this, but with the economy and the recession and the setbacks, they have been so consumed with this that they have not been able to put this as a priority in how they're going to transition with this workforce.
It's really, really a deep issue affecting all aspects of society. It's going to be, I mean, with the new technology and all, you know, people are more individualized and they're not interested in associating with their neighborhoods even. So you're looking at, like Danny says, you're looking at changes in participation in any kind of civic or social organization is just going to go by the wayside unless there's a way to create interest and a reason for being, you know, for congregating, for being affiliated with something greater than yourself. And as Americans, we've always done that, and up until now, that's just been part of American life. And I really do think it's the technology that's changing it so that because people won't have to go to a classroom to get a degree, and that's one of the reasons why education is going to flip. And you know, and for Rotary, I don't know how we're going to get more members. You know, I mean, you see organizations perhaps maybe just on a neighborhood or a street level, or maybe just a microcosmic business level might be an answer of getting people interested. But certainly to get the dialogue going with young entrepreneurs and people who are in business and people who are in churches and who are in Rotary, you know, to expand that is just going to be critical.
A lot of this comes from the breakdown of the family.
Yes.
Because when you have single-parent households, you don't have that person that's taking their daughter to dance and their son to Boy Scouts and getting them to join all these organizations. But when you talk about the economic circumstances, and I think that a lot of it relates completely to compensation. Because when you look at it and you sit there and business is focusing on giving the money to the CEOs and the money's not filtering down to the people at the bottom, then that is right there is causing those Generation Ys to flip from job to job to job. Because the reason why they're doing it is you're going to go get the next dollar from the next guy. So there's going to be this competition that's going to come along, and especially when those boomers retire, you know, it's like, and that's like what I was talking with you about the Hispanic population. You know, as soon as they get the opportunity to go do their own thing, they're going to go do it. And they're going to challenge the current and existing businesses in our area. And that is going to ratchet up whether they like it or not. I mean, you remember the 90s, okay? People could go to CommScope and get a job making $15 or $20 an hour. Those jobs, because the fiber optic industry fell apart after the .com bust, aren't available on the scale that they were. That's minimized. So then we have the labor competition between on the employee side instead of the employer side, and that's ratcheted down the income level of people on the local level. I mean, and that's what I think that this is more of. This is a local issue. We keep talking in society about localism. You know, it comes down and you know, what is it going to take for young individuals to want to participate in the community? It's going to take the community wanting to invest in individuals.
Another issue for our area, I think we're aware of, is the fact that the age group that we're talking about is leaving this area.
Mhm.
You know, we've lost population in this age group also.
20-something%.
You know.
Well, you know, Saturday night there was something significant. At the Hickory Museum of Art, there were 300 people, and it was around 40 artists, mostly from Asheville, who saw that as a great facility and asked them to do an exhibit with everybody contributing works of art around a theme. And I've been thinking, you know, between Highway 40 and Highway 321, where do the young people go? The attractive places to go are Winston-Salem and Asheville and Boone. And Boone. Now let's leave Chapel Hill out because it's in the Raleigh sphere.
Okay.
And I just think there's sort of an axis, a dual axis of culture that goes from Asheville to Winston-Salem up to Boone, and guess who's in the center of that? And I think that we need to sort of turn outward a little bit and think about, well, the kids that are migrating to Asheville will probably migrate back down to Hickory or back down to Morganton or back down to Lenore. And I keep pushing this regionalism thing, but I think that if we looked at this hub of Winston, Boone, Asheville, Hickory may be sort of losing young people for a time, but if we're part of that larger community, they'll come back here just because it's right in the middle and because it's part of the whole. So I think we need to turn out a little bit and be more focused in being a generative influence and an opinion leader in the region and identifying what our region is, both in terms of demographics and in terms of cluster industry focus. That there's a real payoff in that.
But if you go back to your issue, you know, of what is the chamber's role in the future, I think that's something the chamber should be asking itself and asking not its current members, but the next generation
Absolutely.
of members.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And what do they want a chamber to be? And if you aren't willing to be that, then you don't have a reason to exist. So, you know.
We won't exist unless we listen to it.
That's right.
And that's the dialogue
And
that we have to
there's
start.
time, it's happening, but boy, it's happening fast.
But you know, taking a position on internships is a way to do that. I mean, if the chamber encourages a Hickory business to have an internship, then someone from Boone or someone from Asheville or someone from Winston will say, "Yeah, geez, that's pretty good. It's pretty nice there. Nice place to think about having my life." And I think that things like internships is a way to reach out to that focused community to attract people back.
Yeah, but you have to have something so that a young person taking over the business from the three generations of parents and grandparents that ran it is going to have to see, what is this chamber going to do for me now? I know what it did for Grandpa, but that doesn't matter anymore. What's it going to do for me?
You're exactly the whole value issue.
And it may be internship, but there has to be an identity that any group has to be relevant, whether it's Rotary.
Well, I
or
mean, you know, the question is, what did you do for me?
Yeah.
And so then you start trading chits, and internship
That's
or a way to trade chits with
Yeah.
the next generation is all I'm suggesting. And there are other ways too to trade chits with the next generation.
What's the value added for paying your membership and going to the meetings?
I will have a group that is going to deal specifically with chamber and how we operate and how we're organized and the total transformation of what this organization is going to do. And then I also want to find a community-wide base of HR folks or any type business that wants to help with the big picture. I know recruitment of young people and losing young people is an issue now, but we're in a situation, if we've got a talent crisis or just an employee crisis, that hopefully will rectify itself if we're going to have the boomers leaving and we're in industry is going to be trying to find jobs. Jobs will be there for them. But industry and business has got to be prepared to understand what are you going to have to offer to them, or what retention strategy do you have right now in your companies to bring them up the ladder, because they've been left down here. They haven't been trained yet or managed yet to make that leap as far as X and Y.
But like you've said before, the stakeholders aren't in this room. A lot of the
I've got to
stakeholders
get
in
them in the room. That's
Yeah.
why I'm bringing her here.
Right.
She's going to do a program. She's going to do 2 programs. I'm inviting chamber people from all over 3 or 4 states on the end of chamber memberships as we know it. And then that afternoon, she will do America's Workforce Crisis for for local business people.
As far as your issue goes, there's the thing about, Jesus not being able to teach in Nazareth, and that's a lot of the problem that you face, is that people just take for granted the Catawba County Chamber that are here in Catawba County. And I think to make it a regional effort and bring people from outside, and they have that, as Rick Smyer talks about, that aha moment, and then people locally see the value in what you're doing. I mean, I understand the problem that you're facing is because, people, Danny's doing this or that or the other, and they just take it for granted. And, some way we've got to get more buy-in into a lot of this stuff. And as you say, I mean, it would be great to have the biggest leaders of our area to buy into all of these processes.
You also have to have buy-in from the other direction too. Just take a look at this group here. We've invited young folks to join us, and we haven't had much success.
But what are they joining? And see, what it boils down to is that I see is that they're joining networks on the computer. It's not that they don't want to be associated, it's just that they're not going to come to this room and drink coffee with us and sit here. Now, you could get them here, if we could text them right now, they'll pick up on that in a second. Because I can call my people on the phone and they're not answering that phone. If I text them, they got it immediately. If I say one thing to one employee that we're going to make this change, and immediately they text the others and everybody knows instantly. What I face is the stuff gets disseminated by the computer and all this. What I can't find is a leader and somebody that will take initiative. That's what I can't get. I can't get the one saying, this is the problem, this is what we need to do to address it, let's get it going. Once you say this needs to happen, it goes out.
Well, I think it's in a different context. I appreciate what you're saying there, and I understand exactly what you're saying. But I work with a number of groups across the county, and there are some that they're taking the initiative and that youth are participating in. And it's because that's what's interesting to them. It's of interest.
Is there some way that we can incentivize this program? That's the big question. What can we do for them personally to get them to have that buy-in? I mean, I'm here for the community big picture. I'm not here for myself, but those young people, if they can't see, that came through experience of life, that I see the ecosystem and that we have to invest in the ecosystem around us and the good of the ecosystem, because it's not good for a few percent to do well off and everybody else to be in the rubble. We have to lift all the boats. And, but as a young person, when I was getting out of college, I didn't give a damn about anybody but myself, and so how do we incentivize to get those people to buy into this process?
But who
as individuals?
I mean, I've got
that Generation Y group.
Well, it seems to me I've got to educate people like me. I've got to educate the boomers
right.
and the leaders of our industries and American business to get ready for this and change.
And naturally,
changing. They're on a career path. Right now, you're 35 and under. You're changing jobs every 22 months.
Right.
Now I don't need to educate them. To me, I've got to take my membership in every business, every nonprofit, whatever. That's who's got to change their mindset.
Well, that's the natural law of nature, that the older, more experienced people are going to be the people at the top. But you also have to get those younger people to buy into this process and realize that the law of nature is going to take them towards the top as those boomers begin to retire or whatever. But you also, there has to be some kind of, as I say, compensation, some kind of some kind of incentivization for people to buy into this process as far as the young people go.
I think too, from an employer standpoint, that generation has seen so many reductions in force. So there's no trust.
Yeah, there's no loyalty.
Yeah, there's no loyalty. There's, you know, they don't really trust you, and so they are going to be more individual about what their needs are, and so to try to appeal to them, a lot of the times you're trying to figure out what are the intangibles that they're looking for.
Well, I can tell you, it's not because they're slack or lazy.
Yeah.
Because
No,
I work with people that are Generation Y age, and they will bust their butts.
No, they do.
But-
No, absolutely.
Well,
I
they're
mean, I
not,
just had-
they're not employees anymore.
Right.
They are private contractors.
Private contractors, exactly.
In their mindset. Now, I don't think they know that,
Right, and they're
but their
more
mindset is of a private contractor
Right.
instead of an employee, and you treat a private contractor like an employee, and they go find somebody else to contract with.
Two of the
Absolutely.
groups
And
that
they're
are talked about in this paper right here are real estate and insurance. What are they? They're private contractors.
But they're also risk takers. They're less risk averse than the boomers are. Boomers.
Well, it's hard to
security,
take
they're
that.
gonna
Right.
retire out with you. They value retirement plans. That generation doesn't. They will even change careers.
They don't
if they're
expect to have a
dissatisfied.
retirement plan.
No, they don't. But
They don't trust it.
they may go down one career and they've invested 10 or 20 years, and they'll just change careers without even, whereas I'm like, oh my God, I need that.
Well, I
kind of
tried to
work.
sell
Like,
insurance, and I'm gonna tell you, in this economy, it's pretty hard to be a private contractor and make that kind of compensation that you need to be able to stay in that industry.
Liz, you come to Sherman.
I have meetings with Sherman, but my people come to Sherman.
Is this discussed, this is Society of Human Resource Managers, is this on as a priority of it? Do they deal with this very much?
Generations are talked about very much, especially in healthcare, because we try to integrate actually it's probably like 4 generations, because you've got some people that have been at the hospital for, not many, but some that have been at the hospital for 50 years or more, and then, and then you've got folks that, we've got people that will come and they'll work a day and they kind of, today, this wasn't what they thought it was going to be, and they'll leave after a day. We've got people that will work a few months and then they just don't call you, and they never show up for work. They don't return. You're trying to figure out what happened, and they won't call you back. And it's kind of like, well, when did that start? And you have to, at some point, accept that as an employee, and so it's talked about a lot. And
Well,
it's
the
talked
whole-
about a
the
lot.
whole-
It's all the generations,
Or you're talking about the whole issue of notice, because back.
Well, I'm just saying, just the different.
But that one specific issue was you were talking about the whole issue of notice, and that's something that I've noticed over my, working career of 25 years and being in the restaurant business and stuff. When we first started out, people would give notice, but that whole thing goes back to the issue of management versus the employee. And if the management's not going to have loyalty to the employee, then why is the employee going to have loyalty to the management?
Well, it's all about relationships.
It is,
Exactly.
they see this the bottom line, I need this paycheck, they don't see that I have this relationship with this company.
Well,
Exactly.
that's because that's a management problem.
That's nothing.
That's a boss and management problem. You can't have good relationships
But
with
it
your
is getting
employees, you won't
worse.
have loyalty. And there'll always be those who won't ever
Right,
be
but
loyal,
it's
but you
gotten
can certainly
worse.
increase your opportunities of loyalty by being a good manager and really caring about your employees.
Before you can get loyalty, you need to get civility back.
Well, that too. I know, it's a real mess.
I'll tell you, there's a gap in there that's very unknown, because even if you do have great relationships and you're communicating and you think you know what's going on with your staff, they come out of the blue sometimes. And
That's
kind
true.
of-
That's
so
true.
sometimes you're like, well, what is it that we're not appealing to, or what are they looking for? It's not fulfilling anymore. This type of work
Yeah.
is not satisfying or fulfilling, and they're kind of looking for something else.
But it's always a two-way street. You can't blame yourself all the
Right,
time, because
right.
if you're doing the right thing and you've got an employee who's just not satisfied, and 60% of the rest of your employees are, then it's not me, it's not you.
Yeah.
It's just there's another issue.
Well, that goes to the trend. I mean, is it the trend, or is it an individual thing? Is it 10% of the people that might be doing this, or is it 75% of the people that might be walking away from the job at some point in time without giving any notice or having the communication together to say, I'm not, do they feel like, when I worked for Yusuf at Rock Barn, he always talked about an open door policy. Is it truly an open door policy, though? You can talk about an open door policy, but do the actions meet the words? I mean, with him, the actions met the words. We could go talk to him about something, and he would listen to us. But there's a lot of managers that sit there and talk about having an open door policy, and then you go express your concern to them, and then they're a top-down manager, and they tell you about the way things are, and, you go crawl back in your hole somewhere.
Yeah. Well, it could be that we're sort of on the cusp of a whole new management employee relationship.
Well, it should be a partnership.
And
because
for the better.
You're trading you're trading your labor, okay, for compensation.
Right.
So you're both have something that you're offering to one another. I see, and one of the things when I read this that I was sitting there, one thing that I've noticed is that if you have a business that isn't willing to invest in its equipment and infrastructure, then it is not going to invest in its human capital. Okay, and we see it, like when I sit here and I look at the way that Southwest Hickory's running down around here and some of the other things that are happening along the railroad tracks, I see a community that is not investing in its human capital.
Page 15 in the book, in the study, gives you a good idea of what employers ought to have in their leadership training classes and a mindset of how to incorporate these generations that are in the company now and those that are coming in. From appreciation, because they're not going to stay if they're not appreciated. Compensation isn't their primary motivator.
That's right.
They want to see the CEO. They want to meet with them. We're going to have to deal with child care and elder care programs for them. Employee empowerment, how we involving them and giving them more authority via self-management work team where they can take turns leading, developing new products. Flexible schedules, big. Social opportunities, their friendships with their peers at work, employee parties, sporting events. Technology has got to be a part of their job. Training, they want to be trained and coached and mentored. Travel, their vacations are adventure trips and humanitarian themed vacations. And volunteer work, their work-life balance, they want to volunteer in their community. And their work needs to be meaningful. That's a great beginning. But I'm looking for some direction and ideas that you may have and advice on what we do from here with this, preparing for her to come. My board is going to see this and hear from me next Wednesday about what we're going to do internally first and how we can branch this out. But what role does the chamber and can we have in educating the local business community, the community itself about this, other than bringing her? Do we need a team of folks, or America's Aging Workforce team that can start learning and studying about this and in holding sessions with business and then with our young people too? Give me some ideas.
I think it's always an awareness thing.
Yeah.
And you can only make it available, and they may come, they may not. But those that are interested in surviving or knowing what's going on will be there. You can't make. All you can do is offer opportunities. People may come, they may not. But my theory has always been you reach those that are interested, and you hope. If it's successful, normally others will come. So it's just an awareness thing. And don't they say we have to hear things 7 to 12 times before it really sinks in? So it's just a continuous thing. In workforce development, you know, for the last 5 years, we've had programs and training on the differences in the generation and what does each generation, like you said, there's about 4 generations now in the workforce. But how do we merge those and how do we meet the individual needs? But it's an awareness issue again, and who's interested will be there.
What do we do with your profession?
I think we do need to have more dialogue. I don't know that anyone's going to have the answer. It's always been a mystery. You know, how do you integrate 4 generations who have either different values or different perceptions or different stereotypes of each other? And so I mean, I think it's going to take at least some dialogue in the beginning, just to kind of see where. So it would be. I mean, I'm enjoying this conversation right now.
I think.
And I see a big kernel of positive outcomes that's possible here. I mean, if you look at a lot of the ways I know people that look at work, you know, you've got to put your nose to the grindstone so many hours per week. You get a couple weeks vacation here and there. Hopefully you save your money, and then when you get older, then you've got some years at the end of your life to enjoy and kick back and ride your boat around and this and that. I think what the younger people are saying is we want a more holistic approach to life, you know, workplace and non-workplace things. And the business the community, I don't think, wants to say, I don't care what you do if it doesn't affect this business. We're about business, okay? That's true. But at the same time, I think they're saying we want a more holistic approach. And if it's done right, that actually, I think, could be a benefit.
I think as far as young people, that they are more healthy because this holistic approach makes them more well-rounded individuals.
Where does work fit into life, and how does it all fit together? They're wanting to recompose this thing, and I think
you hit the nail on the head as far as forming a small group, as you've said before, ambassadors that you can send out to these individual businesses and send that group to go talk to these CEOs. Instead of bringing the CEOs here, we go out to the CEOs. It makes it easier on them, and then we can move forward on this issue.
Right, and every industry is going to be a little bit different, but you can take just what you've got there mentioned, what you just talked about, Danny, about those core values of, like, recognition is probably more important than compensation. That is something that we incorporate in our business all the time.
Well, it's a form of compensation.
And it's very easy. I mean, it's just a little certificate, or it's a pat on the back, or just a thank you note. It does not cost anything. And it goes for miles and miles and miles in terms of that person's self-esteem, their loyalty to the company. I mean, there's a lot of things that just businesses could just even, they don't know that these things can be done.
But it is.
And so sending ambassadors, like you say, is a great idea, just to reach out to them and say, these are just some easy things. Here's some information. These are some easy things that you can do. And then hiring the right managers.
But what you're talking about is a form of compensation, because they can put that on their resume.
That's right.
They can show that.
That's right.
Towards the future,
Yeah.
that, look, I did this with my job, I received this recognition with my job. That is a form of compensation.
Right.
It's not just money as far as compensation, it's that the employee has been invested in.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Wayne, you're educating the Z. What do we do? What
does who do?
Well, I'm saying what they're the ones that will be entering the labor force soon, and is there a role that we need to do?
The more you get them engaged in the labor force before they enter the labor force, the better off everybody will be. And we throw that word out of internships all the time. You know,
But you're not doing any this year.
There.
Yeah.
But and it's not just paid things. And, you know, before my daughter went to medical school, she spent a year working for free in doctors' offices doing it, and watching cut up people. You know, that's what you got to do. So,
Where's your daughter? Where's she doing this at?
well, now she's at Emory.
But see, we need to do that here on the local level.
Yeah, well, she did locally, but it was because I was able to know people to get around. But the point is, you know, in all professions.
So we need a clearinghouse that makes that more available
and
lets
people involved in the workforce before they enter it. Really.
But I think our school systems are the three, and actually the others in Caldwell and Burke are doing a pretty good job with a small portion of students, unfortunately. But my son was in the health, he's a graduate of Catawba County school system, and he did a healthcare internship his junior and senior year, and he is now a certified registered nurse anesthetist. He's working at Catawba Valley. He came back, but it's because the school system nurtured him, and so there are opportunities here, but it is a small percentage. But the school system can play a big part in this with their internships, and of course that's working with businesses.
And they do have, I agree, they have some very successful
They do.
programs. I know Hickory High does. I don't know the rest of them, but those are things that should be expanded on because they're very, very valuable.
They're very
And you don't want to wait till they're in college. You want to start them.
You know, how do we keep Charlotte and Atlanta and Raleigh from skimming off the cream of the crop and just leaving us with the kids without a lot of potential?
Well,
someone said we were talking about new business formation, and someone said, well, maybe that new business was just someone lost their job and they started something. Hallelujah! They started something, and he was condemning them that it was just they didn't really start a business. They just needed to do something, so they started something. We've had this cycle where when Corning had all these engineers, and we'd go through a recession. Now I can tell you in Boston, when you'd go through a recession and the engineers would throw off of Data General or digital equipment, they would start businesses. They wouldn't go running to another city. They would start businesses. But if you looked at in like 2000, when the slump happened here, all the young engineers got thrown off of Corning and they went somewhere else because there was no infrastructure here to encourage them to start anything. There was no focus here to encourage them to start anything. So we lost them. And what we should be doing is every time there's an economic cycle, we should be pumping out new businesses, but we aren't.
But the key in engaging young people, I'll tell you perfectly honestly, I believe intelligence and creativity is inversely proportional to your age. I've always thought that my children were much smarter than I was because they think without the handicap of having to do it the way it used to be done. But what they don't have, what they need from us, is not to be told how we've always done it, but to be told how to take that creativity, that vibrant intelligence, and integrate it into the way the system works. You should read the biographies of Steve Jobs and Bill Gates if you haven't, and get through the obnoxious personalities, because they're no different than David Rockefeller or Andrew Carnegie. They're obnoxious people. But what C is, and the key in Steve Jobs is you have this brilliant person who came out of nowhere and took down IBM. Think about that. But what he wanted to do, one of his keys to success, is he knew he didn't know how to do business. He knew how to be creative, so he brought in people that told him how to take that creativity and make it work. And that's what the young people need, is they need the guidance from the older people on how to implement the creativity.
And that's the reason why we've talked about micro-lending and incubators, because they didn't have the red tape and the obstacles back in the 70s.
And the concept of incubators is wonderful. It doesn't always work.
But
Conceptually,
but that's what makes it good is the fact that success comes from failure, and everybody's sitting there and they're risk averse and they're worried about the failure part, but they're not looking at the big picture and those that succeed that help out the whole ecosystem, as I say. I don't care about failure. Shoot, you fail 90% of your life and everybody gets stuck on that failure.
There are questions here that she is indicating that organizations need to act on now, and questions within their management team they have to answer. How will retirements impact my company in the future? What level of total annual attrition can we expect in the future? What experience and skill factors are essential to our company's future? How we find the talent, how we develop the talent that we hire and retain it, and how can we identify and develop future leaders? Any business. Well,
trick is getting the CEO to ask to give a flip about those
Get the right
questions.
people.
I know.
This is great. I think the first time I saw it, most of the stuff on this page 15 was in the mid-60s. And then I've seen it more and more over the years, but it's the same basic thing. The problem is the people who have to make the decisions to implement these kinds of things are older. I'm reminded of, it's apocryphally at least attributed to Keynes, that when he came out with the general theory in the 30s, somebody asked him, says, but what's the long run implications? And he says, in the long run, we're all dead. If this is going to happen 5 years from now, and I'm 60, which I wish I was 60 again, and I'm going to retire at 65, so you take care of it.
I know. I'm on the way out. It's not a priority.
It's not a priority. It's not, I don't want to deal with these issues. So I don't know how. It's not incentivizing the young people.
Well,
They're ready to go.
But I disagree. I think a lot of the people on their way out do care.
Some do. I won't say none do.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen a whole lot of
Some
them.
care.
I haven't seen a whole lot of them relative to the total population. I've dealt with a lot of them. I remember I had one boss one time who liked to quote things, and I asked him, I think we need to be concerned about this. It could happen. And he says, Mark Twain once said that I've been faced with many disasters in my life, most of which didn't happen. I suggested to him that maybe Twain saw those disasters and did something was the reason they didn't happen. That didn't go over real well. That's one of the reasons I got out of that career.
How do I get the CEOs here on the 13th of September?
Because they saw this stuff when they were taking their management development training classes, and were probably very frustrated with the fact that they couldn't get anybody above them to pay attention to it.
It's all chemistry. It's all about the right people. I say it until I'm blue in the face. It's all about having the right people on your team, the right people who understand. And yeah, when I get ready to retire, I'll take something like that and I'll give it to the person who buys my business, or I'll give it to my general manager. If I don't want to do it, my general manager will do it, because I've hired the right general manager, someone who really cares and wants to do it right, because she has a future with this company and doesn't want to lose her job and doesn't want to see it go down. So yeah, I agree with you, John. I mean, there are people out there who just don't care, and they're either retiring or they have managers who don't care. I mean, I work for federal government, and I got so sick and tired of having all of these training when it was all for the worker bees, and the management never got the training, and so nothing ever changed. So it's all about chemistry.
To go visit the John Brays or whoever with the idea of presenting them how to put together a Gen 2020 team within the company. And here is a plan, a recruitment and a retention plan that you can help implement in the team. Just
maybe
put it
if you can identify the guy or gal who's going to be the CEO in 5 years, who's going to have to deal with this.
Well, that's who leads the team.
Yeah.
But I think that as far as your communication with these CEOs, you need to, as you were saying in the beginning, form you like 2 or 3 people out of this group to take along with you to be liaisons, because you cannot go to all of these people, and then have that dialogue and that communication between the liaison, the CEO, and yourself. But if it gets to be where the CEO wants to move forward on something, then they can come and have the direct contact with you. As far as that, now as far as the 13th, that's a short-term deadline, and I don't know that anything can happen that fast. I know nothing happens that fast in my personal life, to where snap and. You can change the world in a minute, because if I could, I would.
Well,
but
I've certainly got plenty of time to communicate and market this, that she's coming. Sherm meets here next Thursday. I'm going to be in here with this, giving one of this to everybody, save the date. It's spending a lot of our time.
As far as the long-term effort, I think to have those ambassadors, liaisons, to go with you and participate and focus on these issues. And if you see something interesting, then you call them up, communicate with them, get them in tune, have them focus on that. And I've spoken about that in the past, about these various issues that we've become involved in, you know, to have to give some diplomacy and to pass out, you know, certain tasks to this committee and empower, you know, this Future Economy Council more. I think that that would behoove you, and you know, that would empower yourself.
Well, I'm still learning. I'm no anywhere near authority on
Yes,
this.
sir. But you're the leader of this thing.
I can lead us there, but I've got a lot to learn and to read
Right.
and to hear.
But
more about
you'll
this.
empower yourself by like creating some of these small group on technology or this workforce development or whatever, and then those people and whatever their certain dynamics of their personal life is, they're going to take interest in that subject, and then it empowers you, because there's no way you can read and study all this stuff, and then we can come to you and say, hey, Danny, we saw this and we think that this would be fantastic for the area. You know, and whatever the person's forte, then you empower yourself through empowering those other people. That's part of that networking aspect that we've always talked about.
Well, I appreciate.
I'll say one thing. I wouldn't underestimate the power of the current economic situation. Meaning, survival today is far more important than that issue that's 4 or 5 years from now.
That's right.
So that's the mindset right now, because a lot of companies would care about that if they have the ability to care about it. So the people I would focus on would be the companies I know will be here in 5 years. Your Hickory Springs, your larger companies that they have the resources that they'll probably be okay. They can weather storms they've weathered them before. You're going to have a much more difficult time with your smaller, I'm the owner, I'm the manager, I'm the accountant, I'm everything company, because they don't have the ability to do that.
That's right.
Or even the resource to develop future talent necessarily. They don't have an HR department. So you're going to have to make inroads with those larger companies because they've got the time to do it.
Well,
Is there a big investment cost in mentorships? Are there obstacles to internships? Because I mean, we've talked about
It's
internships and mentoring.
time. It's not.
Right.
It's not. The intern does not really provide value to the company. It takes away time from the person that has to oversee them and that. The only thing it provides is if you're in a hiring mode, it gives you a chance to look over people for free.
But there's a problem that I've seen that where people who are already employed sometimes have mixed feelings towards internships, because some companies use internships as evaluation and training opportunities, and other companies use internships as cheap labor. And so some of the employees that would be the mentors of those interns, and I ran into this in spades and something recently where the guy said, I don't believe in interns because all they do is steal jobs. And I think that's something you have to combat, be careful to combat, and make sure that the people who say, I've got 3 interns aren't really just outplacing 3 legitimate employees and getting cheap labor.
I also want to make one comment in disagreeing with you, because I'm a small business owner. I have four other employees in my office, and then I have got about 70 part-time people, and we have tremendous communication because we're small and we're able to deal with issues, and we have big hearts, and we really do we do a lot for our employees, and I think it's easier to get someone of a small business who has to get the idea and to run with it. And it would be for a Hickory Springs that's got this this management framework in place. So
if you could identify the companies that are growing or intent on growth, if they're planning to grow, if they're not in a hunker down position, they're more likely to be interested in thinking about the future than ones that maybe are struggling. So I don't know how if you could look at profitability and just approach the companies that are profitable, that'd probably give you a first leg up.
Yeah.
Well, Nathan, on your visits, make a copy of this and leave with everybody that you see.
I mean, it's And just in my personal opinion, it's the biggest issue
Yeah, it's just huge.
by far that probably the whole country faces. We're not alone in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole world is facing it. It's not just us. And the other thing, too, I was reading an interesting article, I'll just throw this out. With population shifts, power shifts. Internet, world reach, power shifts. You see companies, and historically, countries have done really stupid things because they're afraid of, for example, they have a huge reduction in their armed forces because there just aren't enough people, and they do really brash or stupid things, or others are too frightened to do anything because they don't want to lose the resources they have. And so you see major power shifts in the world because of population changes. So that's another thing we'll be facing in the next 20, 30 years.
But there's a real key here which makes this not a problem but an opportunity, because the same issue, as you've said, is faced by everybody. So that doesn't mean we are disadvantaged, but rather if we are talking about it and thinking about it, we are advantaged.
That's right.
So it's an opportunity to do what some other community is not doing.
You know, something that's going on tomorrow right here in this town that relates very much to this is the TEDx Hickory. Is anybody? Saturday. Anybody here going to that?
What is it? What is it?
Well, it's some local people here have arranged a 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. series of 15 lectures on the whole interface of computers and technology and media, and they're having it at the Salt Block.
Oh, cool. I didn't know about it.
I'm not sure if it's zeroed in on just technology type things. It's just people that have stories about their life and their
I think the
careers.
theme is doers and makers. That's kind of the rough thing. And it's everything from people singing and how they write a song to people that have done research on birds and how they relate to personalities in people. So it's like one after the other, just all over the
But it was generated in sort of amongst some young people here in town that just decided that needed to be done and made it happen.
Grassroots effort.
It's a national program.
But the one here in Hickory was just a half a dozen guys that decided to make it happen.
To get a ticket.
Okay.
Yeah,
They
you have to
approve
apply.
you to go.
Yeah.
Right. I think
It's
they're
only
still up
limited to
now.
100.
Yeah, that's great.
Danny, I'm leaving here and going to the Caldwell is hiring event.
Good.
You know, if I could take some of these to the employers there if you like.
I've got some extras here,
Okay.
if you can zero in.
Okay.
Wayne, to host Sarah on the 13th, I'm not sure whether I need Belk Centrum or the big auditorium. Would you all be interested in
That's what he said.
hosting her?
Of course, since I don't keep that schedule and I'm constantly reminded I do not have veto power over it, we should probably check through the right people.
Okay.
But, yeah.
What's the date again?
But we'd love to have it.
September
September.
13th right now.
September, I'm sorry.
That's what day of the week?
Thursday.
Do you want me to check or do you want to call?
Wayne, I've dealt with, I just can't remember her name.
Janet Matthews.
Janet Matthews.
Yeah, I would recommend at this stage reserving both.
Well, I thought about that based on if we could, because the overflow. The Belk Centrum seats 300.
Yes, actually, it's going to be renovated
Oh, really?
this summer, so it might not, well, we'll work on that.
Okay.
And the other one's 1,400, so.
But you know, an exciting new space is that green room post office theater in Newton. I went to something there last week, and that's just a fantastic space. And you know, I don't know if it fit, but
Well, they won't allow things like this. They won't let us use it.
So, go ahead, check with me or copy me on an email or something.
Okay. I can't thank y'all enough. I sure got nice to have a group that I can vet these things with, and that we go forward. And if you want to help me and be on the team to look at this issue as we go forward, I'd love to have you. You just need to let me know. Schmoozapalooza's tonight, 4 to 7 at the old Integrity Bank building downtown, Hickory, right on the square. That's the biggest building I've ever seen inside. It's huge. It's beautiful. So
Where is it
it's
again?
free.
It's the big marble white.
That
The old
right
First
across the
National
way.
Oh, First National, okay.
Right on the corner. So come by 4 to 7, free food, drink, and surprise.
surprise.
Thank y'all.
P.T. Barnum.